The house stood glowing like a palace, but Lena entered it like a ghost. Her wedding dress shimmered in the chandelier light, while Adrian Moretti looked at her as if she were no more than ink on a contract. No music, no tenderness, no escape. Just a terrified girl, a ruthless man, and a marriage built on debt, fear, and silence. But in the shadows of that grand estate, where every hallway hides a secret and every glance carries a warning, the story begins to burn into something far more tragic and beautiful. Because the moment a monster falls to his knees for the woman he once bought, the audience realizes they were never watching a simple mafia drama, they were watching a war between love and ruin.
Lena Ward's autonomy was stolen the night she stood in borrowed clothes, the living payment for her father's fatal error. Her approval was never part of the bargain that bound her to the city's most feared phantom. The choice was a cruel ultimatum: her father's death, her mother's destruction, and the utter obliteration of their family. Thus, at 23, with her face a mask of tears over a document she could not read, Lena was reborn as Mrs. Adrian Moretti. She became a commodity, a human asset claimed by a man who had settled the deal long before she arrived. Here, the terrible dance of desperation and dominance was set in motion. The very air in the apartment felt thick with terror and the metallic scent of old blood. Lena stayed pressed to the kitchen wall, her fingers gripping the counter like a lifeline. In the next room, her father knelt, a captive between two brutes waiting for the command to end his life. "I am begging you," her father gasped, his voice cracking with desperation. "Just one more week to find the money." The taller of the two, a jagged scar across his face, answered with a sharp, vicious strike. The impact echoed like a gunshot in the confined space, making Lena flinch as her mother sobbed nearby. Lena's thoughts turned to static. "One more week?" the scarred man jeered, his laughter cold. "You've had 6 months of failure, Ward. Mr. Volkov is out of patience." "I can get it," her father choked out past a bleeding lip. "I swear I can." "You'll get a grave," the second man said, his tone flat and casual. He drew a handgun, and the cold, mechanical click of a round being chambered sent a shock wave of ice through Lena. "Your time is up!" "No!" her mother screamed. In that moment, everything slowed. Lena moved on pure reflex, stepping into the living room. "Please, just wait." 3 sets of eyes swiveled to her. Her father's face went white with horror. "Lena, get out of here now!" "Quiet!" the scarred man hissed, grabbing her father's hair and yanking his head back, pressing the pistol to his temple. "Well now, what's this? Is this his daughter?" Lena's heart hammered, her lungs seizing. "Please, that's my father!" We'll get the money." "You will?" The thug's eyes raked over her, a cold assessment of her worth. "What are you, 20? 21? What can a broke girl like you possibly have to offer us?" She had no answer. She was a waitress, living paycheck to paycheck and drowning in her own debt. In their world, she was worthless, until a new kind of payment became clear. The man lowered the gun a fraction, his gaze shifting to a different sort of evaluation. "How old?" 23, Lena breathed. "Educated?" A faint nod was all she could manage. "Record, vices, any instability?" "What the hell are you asking?" her father roared, earning a pistol whip for his outburst. "Answer him," the man ordered, his tone utterly calm, as though he were conducting a bizarre job interview. "No," Lena choked out. "I have no record, no issues. I'm fine." The two men shared a silent, knowing glance that passed 1,000 words between them. "What's his final tab?" the scarred man asked his associate. 300,000, and that's before the interest." The amount struck Lena like a physical blow. Her knees felt weak. Her father had called it a minor loan. A lie. "The terms have been amended," the gunman announced, holstering his sidearm. "You're leaving with us. Right now. No calls, no goodbyes, and no possessions. You will walk through that door, get in the car, and you will never turn around." "Where are you taking her?" Her mother's voice was a fragile thread. "That's not your problem," the scarred man replied, cutting her father loose. "You should be thanking us. Your daughter just bought your pathetic life." "No," her father croaked, trying to stand. "You can't take her." "Do you want to see the other option?" The second man cut in, his gun reappearing. "Because I'm more than happy to finish our original business." The room became a silent tomb. Lena watched her broken father beg. She watched her mother collapse into a storm of grief. This little family in this cramped apartment was everything, and her father had gambled it all away to monsters. "I'll go," the words escaped her lips. "Lena, no." "I'll go," she said again, her voice now forged with a cold, hard resolve. Her voice, miraculously, did not tremble. "You just leave them alone. That's the deal, isn't it? I cooperate and they remain safe." "Smart girl," the scarred man smirked, his smile a hideous thing. "Very smart." They cut her father's bonds. Lena walked to the door, feeling like a ghost puppeteering her own body. This was a dream. It couldn't possibly be real. "Where is she going?" her mother pleaded again, her voice breaking. The enforcer paused in the doorway. "She's expected at the Moretti estate." That single name, Moretti, hit Lena like a physical blow. Adrian Moretti, the whole city whispered that name. He was the wraith who pulled the city's secret strings, a man whose enemies had a habit of disappearing, a name uttered only in fear, and she was being delivered to him. "No," her father lunged. "Please, not him. I'll get the money, anyone but him." The scarred man simply closed the door, ending the conversation. The car was a black Mercedes with windows so dark they were like polished stone, the interior worth more than her parents' entire apartment. Wedged between the two men, she saw the city lights blur into a nightmare. The silence was heavy and suffocating. Lena tried to memorize their path, desperate for a landmark. But the streets wove a confusing pattern, and she was lost within 10 minutes. As the car climbed into the wealthy hills, she gave up. "What does he want with me?" she finally asked. The scarred man offered only a sideways glance. "You will be told what you need to know." "Is he going to kill me?" "If Mr. Moretti wanted you dead, we wouldn't have wasted the gas." The reply brought her zero comfort. The mansion emerged from the night like a monolith from some Gothic legend. Colossal iron gates opened without a sound, revealing a long, forbidding driveway. The house itself waited at the drive's end like a sleeping giant. 3 floors of dark stone and glowing glass rose in silent, imposing judgment of her. The car stopped, and a butler in a crisp uniform opened her door. "Miss Ward." He said her name as if she were an invited dignitary, not a human debt payment. "This way, please." The scarred man gave her a shove. "Go." Lena stepped out on shaky legs. The air smelled of pine trees and old money. She followed the butler up sweeping marble stairs and through enormous, heavy doors. The inside was even more imposing than the exterior. The ceilings were impossibly high, with crystal chandeliers dripping light over priceless art. Lena's worn sneakers made a slight squeak on the marble floors, a faint mark of her intrusion. The butler led her down a long hall toward a set of massive double doors. He knocked once, waited a precise moment, and then opened them. "Miss Lena Ward," he announced her presence. The study was a tableau of immense power, dark wood, aged leather, and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. And behind a sprawling desk sat a man whose very stillness seemed to dominate the room. Adrian Moretti was younger than the legend suggested, maybe in his early 30s. He had perfectly styled dark hair and might have been called handsome, if not for the absolute emptiness in his gaze. In a simple white shirt, he was signing papers, her entrance barely registering. "Sit," he ordered, not looking up. Lena did. Her hands were shaking so badly she hid them in her lap, focusing only on the rhythm of her own breathing. Moretti finished his work, capped his pen, and at last raised his eyes to hers. They were the color of wet slate, utterly devoid of any light. "You are younger than I was told," he stated. "I'm 23. "You look it." He leaned back, his gaze the detached inspection of a man appraising livestock. "Your father owes Dmitry Volkov $300,000. You know this?" "I found out tonight." "Yes. Volkov was going to kill him, and he would have, if I hadn't proposed a different solution." Moretti slid a folder across the polished desk. "You will be my wife." The words were an alien sound in the quiet room. Lena could only stare at the folder, frozen. What? "I have need of a wife for certain business ventures. Volkov needs his money. This satisfies both." He tapped the folder with a single finger. "Read it." Her hands shaking, she opened it. Inside was a contract, a dense wall of legal jargon that swam before her eyes as panic rose. "I don't understand," she whispered. The arrangement was laid out with cold precision. She would marry him, live with him, and follow his every command. In return, her father's debt would vanish and his life would be spared. Refusal meant Volkov's men would finish their original assignment. "Is that clear?" he asked. "This is kidnapping. You can't do this." "You can't force a marriage." "I'm not forcing you." Moretti's voice was a monotone blade, utterly detached. "You can walk out, but the second you leave my land, your father's immunity vanishes. Volkov will claim him by sunrise." He let the promise hang in the air, a thick poison. "The decision is yours." But it was an illusion of choice, and they both knew it. "Why me?" Lena breathed, hating the fracture in her own voice. "What purpose does a wife serve you? That is beyond your concern. If I am to be your bride, surely I have a right to know. You have no rights in this house." The very air in the room seemed to crystallize with cold. "Let us be explicit, Ms. Ward. This is a contract. You will be my wife by name and nothing more. You will reside here, appear at functions I dictate, and otherwise be completely invisible to me. You are not owed justifications, a partnership, or any romantic notion you might harbor. You are an instrument to fix a problem. That is your sole function." Something inside Lena cracked like fine porcelain. Her eyes dropped to the contract, its clauses blurring into an indecipherable script as she searched for a loophole that wouldn't mean her father's death. There was none. "Where do I sign?" a hollow voice asked, and she barely recognized it as her own. For an instant, something, surprise, maybe even respect, flickered across Moretti's stone face. He merely opened his desk and produced a heavy, ornate pen. Initialed the preceding 11 pages. "Your signature goes on the 12th. In the span of 600 seconds, her entire future was signed away. A dull ache spread from Lena's hand, the wet ink a dark smear on her skin, a prophecy of bruises. Moretti took the document, his inspection clinical, like an accountant tallying souls before locking his new asset in a drawer. "The ceremony is tomorrow," he stated. 1800 hours. A judge will be present. A dress will be sent to you." "Tomorrow?" The word was a shard of glass in her throat. But my parents, your family will be informed after it is done. All contact with them is severed until I permit it. He stood, the gesture of final brutal dismissal. Elena will escort you to your rooms. You are to stay there. My name is Lena, she insisted, the words feeling utterly pointless. Not Elena. He looked at her as if she were a curious insect. It is irrelevant. We are finished. The butler appeared in the doorway then, a silent shadow awaiting his orders. This way, miss. Lena followed on legs that felt like hollow reeds. She registered the scrape of Moretti's chair. He had already erased her from his mind, moving on to the next line item on his ledger. The chamber she was led to was larger than her entire apartment, dominated by a huge bed, a private bath, and a balcony viewing the vast, dark estate. It was just a gilded cage constructed of marble and silk. Lena perched on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. The ink stains looked like brands on her pale skin. In under 24 hours, she had gone from serving espressos to being the property of the city's most feared man. She waited for the emotional storm, the tears or rage, but nothing came. There was only a great, hollowing void, a cold vacuum where her heart should be, making her lavish surroundings seem distant and unreal. A quiet knock on the door made her jump. "Come in," she called out, the response automatic. A woman entered, maybe in her mid-30s, with tightly bound hair and a pristine blouse. She held several designer bags and a long garment bag. "My name is Mara," the woman said, her accent distinctly Eastern European. "I am to help you with your preparations." "Preparations?" Lena repeated, the word tasting like ash. "For the wedding." Mara set down her burdens and unzipped the bag, revealing an ivory silk dress of stark elegance, worth more than 6 months of Lena's old salary. "We need to check the tailoring. A fitting is pointless." "Mr. Moretti insists." "I don't care what he insists." Lena's voice was sharper than she intended. "He bought me. He can live with this merchandise as is." Mara's face was an unreadable, serene mask. "Cooperation will make this less unpleasant." "For who?" "For you." A silent battle of wills stretched between them. At last Mara sighed, settling into a chair by the window, the dress pulled in her lap. "You are terrified," she stated gently, "and furious. This is understandable. But to fight Mr. Moretti is useless. It will only add to your misery." "My life is already in ruins," Lena retorted. "My father sold me to cover his debts. I am being married against my will to a stranger tomorrow. What could possibly be worse?" "You lack imagination," Mara answered, her voice layered with an old, weary sadness. "In my 5 years here, I've seen others defy him. The results are never good." "So I should be meek? Pretend to be happy?" "I am suggesting you pick your battles. Save your strength for a fight that isn't already lost." Mara stood and laid the gown across the bed like a shroud. "What you wear is of no importance. At 6 o'clock tomorrow, you will be in the main hall. You will become his wife. Everything else is just noise." She left without another word, sealing Lena inside her beautiful prison once more. In another part of the cavernous house, Adrian Moretti moved through his evening, entirely unaffected by the life he had just methodically taken apart. Lena's gaze drifted from the dress to the balcony, calculating the 3-story drop to the hard ground below, and wondered for a moment if it was a viable way out. But the image of her father's bruised, pleading face flashed in her mind with searing clarity. Her mother's sobbing, the cold circle of a gun pressed to a man's temple. Lena walked to the bathroom, turned the shower on full blast, and stood under the scalding spray until it ran ice cold, trying to wash away the fear and the ghost-like touch of her captors. When she finally slid into the vast, cold bed, sleep was not a refuge. She lay awake, staring into the oppressive dark, counting down the hours until she would be Mrs. Adrian Moretti. The ceremony was the sterile transaction she expected. An apathetic old judge recited the vows with the monotone drone of a man reading a legal disclaimer. In the ivory gown, Lena felt like a ghost. Its flawless fit only heightened her sense of detachment. Mara had molded her into a perfect stranger, a face and body designed for this airless, cold world. Moretti stood beside her, his posture that of a man at a business closing, his gaze locked forward as hollow words of union were spoken. There was no music, no flowers, no audience beyond the four souls in the room: judge, groom, bride, and Mara. Do you, Adrian Moretti, take this woman as your wife? I do. The two words were quick and flat, like nails being hammered into her coffin. And do you, Lena Ward, take this man as your husband? Lena's lips parted to speak, but no words came out. Moretti's hand encircled her wrist, not with pressure, but with an undeniable finality, a silent command. Her father's pale, blood-smeared face filled her vision. The gun, the terror. I do, she whispered. Then by the power vested in me, I declare you man and wife. The judge snapped his book shut. You may kiss the bride. For the first time, Moretti aimed his inert, gray gaze at her. That will not be necessary, Svol, he said. The judge stammered. But the tradition? We are done. Moretti dropped her wrist and turned to Mara. See that he is paid and shown out. And just like that, the world she had known officially ceased to be. She was now legally tied to a man who made no attempt at kindness, standing in a vast marble hall, a ring on her finger she didn't remember receiving. She was Mrs. Adrian Moretti, a thing, a ghost. He was already looking at his phone, a statue in a priceless dress. She watched him walk away without a single glance back. Come, Mara said gently, her hand on Lena's arm. I will take you to your new rooms. I have a room. That was temporary. You have been relocated. Lena let the woman lead her through cold, impersonal halls and up a different staircase to a wing of the mansion she hadn't seen. It was all stunningly beautiful, expensive, and utterly dead. Mara unlocked a door to a suite that made her last room seem like a servant's closet. It had a living area, a large bedroom, and a closet pre-filled with clothes she had never seen. This is the East Wing, Mara said. Mr. Moretti's residence is in the West Wing. Your privacy is guaranteed. How considerate, Lena replied, her voice flat. There are rules. Mara's tone turned formal again. You cannot leave the property without an escort and his direct permission. Outside contact must be approved. Meals are at 8, 1, and 7. Dinner attendance is required. And if I refuse, you will be brought to the dining room. Willing compliance is the easier road, Mara advised, stepping back. Get some rest. Your orientation is at dawn. And my function in this gilded cage? Mara paused at the door. Your time is your own, but you are forbidden from leaving the grounds or causing any disruption. And if I do, the alternative is him. Mara delivered the penalty for breaking the terms of this deal, her voice carrying a chill that could freeze fire. Trust me, she said. You have no desire to find out what the consequences are. Then she was gone. Lena wandered through her new ornate prison, pulling open drawers filled with a perfect, soulless collection of a stranger's things. Clothing was custom-made, footwear curated, and jewels abundant. The laptop on the desk was a digital cell, locked off from the world. She stared out at the flawless, unsettling perfection of the grounds. It was a beautiful prison built from money. At night, she slipped into a bed that felt vast and cold. She did not cry, nor did she break down. She simply lay in the blackness, her mind already charting a course for survival. In another part of the house, the man she was bound to was likely destroying other lives for profit. Lena felt the suffocating pull of an abyss, a pressure that made her options clear: fight or be erased. The initial week was a structured performance of silence. Her breakfast was solitary, her lunch the same. Dinner was a charade, set in a hall built for 30, the two of them seated at polar ends of a 20-foot table. Not one word passed between them. He would stare at his phone while she shifted food on her dish, quietly counting down until she could leave. Every morning, Mara would appear with a schedule, a ghostly aide-de-camp. The estate functioned with an unnerving precision. Its staff was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Lena learned the unwritten laws by violating them. First, the West Wing was forbidden territory. Second, questions about his business were not welcome. Third, truth was not a valid currency. She was physically present but utterly invisible, a wife in name only. On the 8th day, her restraint finally cracked. It happened during dinner. Moretti was engrossed in his tablet, his detachment rendering her an object. After another 24 hours of total isolation, a wire in her brain finally gave way. "Does a single person in this room know my name?" Her voice sliced the quiet. Moretti's gaze remained on his screen. "I'm sorry." "My name," she repeated. "Do you know it, or am I just the asset in your files?" He at last set down the tablet, his cold gray eyes locking with hers. "Is there a point to this?" "The point is that I am human. I have a name. I existed before you purchased me. You agreed to the terms of your own accord." "Only because you dangled my father's life in front of me." Lena's voice cracked. "You backed me into a corner and you damn well know it. I gave you a choice. You made it. Now you have regrets." He reached for his tablet. "How mature." The word struck her like a slap. Lena shot to her feet, her chair screaming as it fell. "You are a repulsive thing," she spat, her body trembling. "A soulless monster who thinks he can own people." Moretti's face was a complete blank. "Are you done?" "No, I am not done. I wish—" "I don't care what you wish." He stood, and the enormous room seemed to shrink. "You want to know why your name is irrelevant? It's because you are. You are a line item, an ink stain on a page. I needed a wife for strategic advantage, and you were available. That is the beginning and the end of it. There is no deep well of humanity to discover here. This is your life. The sooner you adjust, the less difficult it will be." Lena felt the burn of unshed tears behind her eyes. She refused to let them fall. "I hope you suffer for all time." "I already am." He walked to the door, stopping for a final crippling statement. "And for the record, your name is Lena. I'm well aware of it. I just find it to be of no importance." Then he was gone. Lena stood alone in the cavernous hall and let her grief take over, crying for her family, her past, and the woman she was. She cried until only an empty ache remained. Then she wiped her face, squared her shoulders, and went back to her room. If Moretti wanted a beautiful silent object, he had made a grave error. The way forward was dark, but she would find a way to fight. She had to. The alternative was to be consumed by this place, and Lena Ward would not go down that easily, not even when facing impossible odds. The next morning, Mara came to her door with a look that was almost an apology. "Mr. Moretti would like to see you in his office," she said, immediately. A knot of ice formed in Lena's stomach. She had expected to be forcibly removed by guards after her explosion at dinner. Just to see the daylight again felt like a small win. What does he want? He didn't specify, but I would not make him wait. He is not a patient man. Lena quickly got dressed, pulled a brush through her hair, and followed Mara down the maze of hallways, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. She had called this man a monster to his face and wished him eternal damnation. Men of his stature do not simply let that go. Mara knocked on his office door, pushed it open, and indicated for Lena to enter alone. Moretti sat at his desk, completely unchanged, composed, icy, and distant. He did not lift his head. "Sit," he ordered. Lena sat, her fingers twisting together in her lap. The silence in the room was a physical weight. Moretti signed a paper, set it to the side, and then finally looked at her. "You are angry," he stated. "I can appreciate why. But if you ever speak to me that way again, there will be consequences. Is that clear?" "Crystal," Lena bit out. "Good." He pulled a file from his desk and flipped it open. "You have a degree in early childhood education. You left 3 credits short of graduating to take care of your mother. Is that correct?" The jarring change of topic threw her completely. "How do you know that?" "Lena, I know every last thing about you. Your school records, your job history, your medical charts. I know you're allergic to shellfish and that you broke your arm falling off a bike at age 9. I know your blood type and your social security number." He shut the file. "When I acquire an asset, I review its complete list of specifications." The word asset made her want to be sick. "What is the point of this?" "The point is you need something to do, and your brooding in that room is useful to no one." He pushed a single sheet of paper toward her. "There's a private school 20 minutes from the estate. They need an assistant for their after-school program. It is 3 days a week for 2 hours each day. You'll get a paycheck, but it will be deposited into an account that I control." Lena looked at the paper, not wanting to touch it. "You're letting me work?" "I'm giving you a way to stop haunting my house like a ghost." He leaned back in his chair. "You will have a driver. You will have a security detail. You will not stray from the approved route or the given times. You will not reach out to anyone from your past. You will not discuss me, this house, or our situation with a soul. If you violate these terms, the privilege is gone. Understood?" It was a chain, disguised as a gift, a longer chain, but a chain nonetheless. "When do I start?" Lena asked quietly. "Monday. Mara will give you the particulars." He picked up a pen, a clear sign she was dismissed. "You may go." Lena stood, but stopped in the doorway. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "This job. Last night you made it very clear that I mean nothing to you." Moretti's face was an unreadable mask. "You don't. But your dramatic scenes at dinner are becoming a problem. Consider this a matter of my own peace and quiet." The insult was meant to sting, but Lena was too ecstatic at the chance to leave the mansion, even for just 6 hours a week, to analyze his reasons. "Thank you," she said, hating the small part of her that actually meant it. He gave no answer. She left. Mara was outside, ready to escort her back. The older woman's face was a mystery, but Lena caught a flicker of something like approval in her gaze. That went better than I thought it would, Mara commented. Did you know he was planning this? It was my suggestion. Mara stopped at Lena's door. You needed a purpose. He needed his quiet dinners back. This solution helps you both. So you set this up? I offered him a solution to a problem he hadn't solved yet. The corner of Mara's mouth twitched. There is a difference. Now we have to start. We need to go over the security rules before Monday. The weekend passed with torturous slowness, but Monday finally came, bringing a feeling Lena had nearly forgotten: anticipation. She chose her clothes carefully, picking something that felt like her old self, fixed her hair, and met the driver at exactly 2 in the afternoon. A formidable man named Thomas was there to collect Lena. He looked to be in his mid-40s and was built like a fighter, though his gentle eyes seemed to contradict his powerful frame. He opened her door without speaking, and they drove off, exchanging the isolated hills for the density of the city. Lena rested her cheek against the cool glass, watching the world pass by. She saw people living their simple lives, walking their dogs, waiting for buses, carrying their shopping. It was a sharp echo of the life that was hers just weeks ago, a life that now felt like a remote dream. The school itself was a brick sanctuary on a quiet street where the trees were just beginning to show their autumn colors. The windows were filled with the art of children. The lot teems with minivans and sedans. 2 hours, Thomas says, his voice gravel as he kills the engine. I'm staying put. A clipped nod is Lena's only reply before she steps out. A second guard from the follow car takes a post by the school gate, a silent sentinel affording her the small mercy of entering alone. At the door, the principal, a Mrs. Chen, meets her with a strong, honest grip and a sincere smile. Mrs. Moretti, we're thrilled you're here. Your help is invaluable to our program. The name is a foreign garment she's forced to don. Lena assumes the role, trailing Mrs. Chen into a room bursting with color where a dozen children, ages 6 to 8, are lost in their own worlds. Our after-school program, Mrs. Chen clarifies. We emphasize creativity, art, sound, storytelling. They just need a gentle hand to keep them focused. She claps, drawing all eyes. Class, this is Mrs. Moretti. She'll be helping us out. A wave of small voices responds. Hi, Mrs. Moretti. The name echoes, and in that sound, for a fleeting moment since her life was shattered, a fragment of the real Lena surfaces. The 2 hours melt away. She helps a girl named Sophie paint a lopsided dog, brokers piece over blocks, and holds a small group spellbound with the tale. It was a taste of pure, unadulterated normality. When Thomas materializes in the doorway, a keen sense of loss pierces Lena. She says her goodbyes, promising to be back Wednesday, then walks to the car. A good day? He asks as they pull away. It was more than good, Lena admits softly. On the drive back, she clings to the feeling of weightless purpose, but then the estate looms, its iron gates yawning wide to swallow them, and the pressure on her chest returns. This was the cage, the school, a brief parole. Dinner was the usual tableau, Moretti at one end, Lena at the other, a silent abyss stretched between them. But tonight, something was different. Lena felt a flicker less invisible. How was your day? Moretti's voice cuts the silence, his eyes glued to his phone. The question is so startling, her fork almost clatters down. It was nice. The children were lovely. That was all, but it was more than they'd spoken in a week, and it left Lena disquieted. Sleep came to her that night, a short reprieve from the constant feeling of sinking. A rhythm took shape. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays at the school. The others were confinement, marked by garden walks, the sanctuary of a book. Dinners with Moretti were a gamble. Some nights a few words, others passed in unbroken silence. In her empty hours, Lena began mapping the estate, learning its hushed cadence. The staff moved like ghosts in a silent ballet. Maids at sunrise, gardeners at midday, chefs creating meals that she and Moretti barely touched. She explored dead corridors and sleeping rooms, finding the second-floor library, a tomb of untouched books with a window seat awaiting sunset. Moretti's office, she surmised, was the home's forbidden core, breached only by his enforcer, Mara, and suited men who appeared at odd hours. She watched his nightly ritual, a single light burning against the estate's darkness, and she learned the fundamental truth of her life here. She was always being watched. It was never obvious, just a flicker at the edge of her vision. The same faces among the staff, the familiar gleam of Thomas's car trailing behind. This constant scrutiny didn't breed fear, but a deep exhaustion. Then, 3 weeks into this strange new life, the game changed. It started with small, unsettling things. Her laptop, which she had not touched, was moved by a fraction of an inch. A drawer left open was now closed. A book from her bedside table vanished, only to surface 2 days later across the room. At first, Lena blamed her own memory, or maybe a meticulous maid. Then she found the photograph tucked inside a novel. It showed her at the school, smiling, surrounded by Sophie and the other children. A secret picture. Someone had been there, watching. Her hand shook as she presented it to Mara that afternoon. "Where did this come from?" Mara's face went pale as cinder. "It was in a book in my room. Someone put it there." Mara snatched the photo, her expression suddenly sharp and dangerous. "Stay here." She returned in 10 minutes, her face carved from stone. "Mr. Moretti will see you now." A cold dread tightened in Lena's stomach as she was led to the forbidden office. But when Mara pushed the door open, Moretti wasn't by himself. 2 men stood by his desk. One was his security chief, a mountain of a man named Victor. The other, younger, had sharp eyes that locked onto her. "Sit," Moretti ordered. Lena obeyed. He held up the photograph. "How long has this been happening?" "I'm not sure. A few days, maybe longer. I noticed things moved in my room. I ignored it until I found this." "What things?" "My computer, clothes, books, small things." A nerve jumped in Moretti's jaw. He passed the photo to Victor. "Find out who was in her room besides the regular cleaning staff." "I want a full report, with names and times before the end of the day." "It will be done, sir." "And triple the security on the East Wing. No one enters her rooms unless I personally approve it." Victor nodded once and left, the younger man shadowing him. Lena was alone with Moretti and Mara. "Is someone trying to hurt me?" Lena asked, hating the quiver in her voice. "We don't know," Moretti replied, his gaze cold and assessing. "But someone is close, and they got inside my home." He rose, walking to the window, hands behind his back. "You are not to leave the grounds until this is resolved. Your school visits are suspended." "But the children are not my problem." "Your safety is." He turned to face her. "Someone knows you are here, knows your routine. That picture is 3 days old. This person has been watching you that long, and my security never saw a thing." Each word was a shard of ice against her skin. A stranger had been watching, near enough to take her picture. "Who would do this?" she whispered. "That is what I intend to find out." Moretti's tone was flat, but a dangerous light was in his eyes. Until I do, you stay in this house. You go nowhere unescorted. You report anything unusual to Mara. Do you understand? Lena could only manage a nod. Say it. I understand. Good. Mara stays with you. It is not a discussion. With a slight wave, he dismissed them, his focus already back on his phone. Lena followed Mara out, her legs feeling like air. Why would anyone threaten me? She asked as they approached her room. I have nothing. I'm no one in his life. I'm just... You are his wife, Mara cut in softly. That alone makes you a target. But he doesn't care about me. Everyone here knows that. Do they? Mara shot her a quick, knowing glance. You live under his roof. You have his name. To his enemies, you are a weakness, a way to hurt him. That is monstrous. That is the world you live in now. At Lena's room, Mara conducted a thorough search, checking every closet, window, and dark corner. She found nothing, but the feeling of violation remained. An intruder was here, touched her things, watched. I will be stationed outside, Mara stated. Try to rest. But sleep was impossible. She sat on the bed, staring at the door, seeing ghosts in the hall, feeling phantom hands on the latch. Each creak was a coming attack. The house's groans became the footsteps of a hunter. She had thought being a prisoner was the worst it could be. She was mistaken. The hours bled together. Dinner was brought and taken away in silence. Mara brought a tray. Moretti had canceled their silent meal. Night fell, wrapping the house in the tense quiet of a predator holding its breath. Lena was about to drift into a stupor of fear when voices in the hall jolted her awake. You cannot just lock her up as if she were a possession. It is precisely what I can and will do, Moretti's voice shot back, sharp as a blade. There is an enemy in my house, Mara. She does not leave this wing until I find them. She will go mad. Then she will be mad. It is better than her being dead. A thick silence hung in the air. Then Mara's voice, low. You are worried about her. I am worried about appearing weak. The silence was absolute. His voice then sliced through it, laying bare his cold logic. If she's harmed, it broadcasts that I cannot secure my own investments. That is an intolerable outcome. The other man's reply was a dismissive grunt. As you say, boss, he muttered. And then he was gone. In the darkness, Lena let the truth settle. This was not about her safety. It was about his image, a matter of dominance and control. This conclusion was hardly a shock. She had long suspected such brutal arithmetic. The hollow ache of hearing it confirmed, however, was a fresh wound. The next 72 hours became a fever dream of anxiety and stillness. Her suite was a cage, with releases only for meals in a small, private dining room. Mara's silent watch was both a comfort and another bar on her prison door. Victor materialized twice with updates, directed at Mara. As his eyes looked straight through Lena, they had dissected security tapes, grilled the staff, and audited every access point, finding nothing. The person who violated her room was a ghost, leaving no print, no trace. On the fourth day, Moretti summoned her again. This time, he looked frayed, not tired. Men like him never show weakness, but a distinct darkness had etched itself beneath his eyes. We have a potential threat, he began, skipping all formality. A maid named Maria entered your quarters outside of her scheduled duties. Her story is she was covering for a sick friend. The disbelief hung in the air, unspoken. He swiveled his laptop to face her, the screen displaying surveillance footage. It captured a uniformed woman striding to the desk, tucking the photograph into a book and leaving with cold efficiency. Her movements were not those of someone cleaning a room. She was the messenger. She had placed the photo, but she was not the architect. Someone else had given it to her. Someone else had taken it. He shut the laptop with a snap. Maria was frozen, locked in terror. But of whom? That was the true question. Moretti leaned back. I have countless enemies, Lena. Any one of them would view you as a pressure point. Then let me go. The words burst from her before she could stop them. If I am a liability, if my being here puts you at risk, then release me. Annul the agreement. I will disappear and you can... No. And why not? You called me a contract, a piece of paper, just destroy it. Because the world is not that simple. He got to his feet, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. You are mine, Lena. I do not surrender my assets, and I absolutely do not allow others to believe they can take them from me. This unknown party was about to learn a very hard lesson. The possessive fire in his tone sent an alien shiver through her, something far more complicated than fear. So, what's the next move? She asked. For now, you return to your routine. You will go back to the school tomorrow. But you said, I am aware of what I said. But keeping you isolated looks like weakness. It gives this person the impression they have already won. His eyes locked onto hers, and for an instant she glimpsed not ice, but a pure, unbending fire. You will go back to your work. Victor's team is securing the area, and I am assigning you a personal detail. Mara is already. Not Mara. He walked to the door and opened it. Enter. A woman stepped in, perhaps in her late 20s, with a lean, athletic build. Dark hair in a tight bun, and eyes that devoured the room in a single sweeping glance. She moved with the stark economy of a career soldier, a portrait of restrained power. This is Irina, Moretti said. Former special forces, an expert in close protection. From this moment, she is your shadow. Irina gave Lena a crisp, professional nod, her expression unreadable. Ma'am. I don't require a keeper, Lena shot back. You are not being offered a choice. Moretti was already turning away, the subject closed. Irina became her constant, her room adjacent, her weapon a silent promise. Her directives were law, demanding instant obedience, leaving no space for debate. In Irina's professionally blank stare, Lena saw not a protector, but a new chain. A walking reminder of her status as an asset to be guarded. Understood, Lena said, the word dripping with resentment. She walked, Irina a constant 2 paces behind, the very air seeming to compress around them. That evening, Moretti broke his pattern of silence, asking about her art, commenting on the weather. This brief performance of connection was infinitely more unnerving than his standard neglect. Why are you pretending? She finally broke. Pretending what? Her mind screamed, that you care, that I am a person. His fork halted, then was placed on the plate with chilling slowness. I am not pretending. Then what is this? What is happening? We are having dinner. You know what I'm asking. A long, strained silence stretched between them. He rose with his wine, turning to face the window, his form a dark silhouette against the grounds. When I was 12, he started, his back to her. A rival family executed my father. It was public, messy, a message to anyone else with ambition. He stopped, took a drink. My mother tried to escape. She took my brother and me, tried to vanish. They caught us in 3 days. They took her life while we were forced to watch. Lena's breath hitched. She knew nothing of his past and was suddenly terrified of the knowledge. The man in charge told us, for now you are worth more alive. Moretti's voice was flat, hollowed out. For 2 years, we were their property, pieces to be traded against my father's loyalists. They gave us enough food to stay alive and enough pain to stay obedient. How did you escape? I didn't. I earned my release by making myself useful, by proving I was a more valuable weapon than a hostage. He turned to face her, and the emptiness in his eyes was a physical blow. I was taught very young that in this world, you either own or you are owned. There is no other option. That isn't true, is it not? You are here because of your father's debts. He traded you as an asset, just as I was traded. He returned to the table but did not sit. The only difference is that I will not harm you. I will never hurt you, but I will not lie about what this is. You are mine, Lena, and I protect my possessions. I am not yours, she whispered, the words lacking any real conviction. My ring is on your finger. You live in my house. Your safety is my duty. His jaw tightened. Someone is testing my defenses, using you as the probe. They need to be taught that this was a mistake. So this is all about your reputation. Yes, he said, without a trace of hesitation. But that doesn't mean I will allow you to be hurt. It was not a confession of care. It was not love or even humanity. It was cold, calculated self-interest, and it was the most honest thing he had ever told her. Lena could find no reply and fell into silence. She finished her food as Moretti lost himself in his phone. When she stood to leave, he didn't notice, but his voice stopped her at the door. Lena? She froze. Do not make me regret this small bit of latitude. She left without speaking. Irina was in the hall, a statue carved from shadows. They walked to Lena's chambers, and for the first time, she felt a thin crack in her profound loneliness. She had a silent guard, a husband who called her property, and a faceless enemy, a man who had just admitted she meant absolutely nothing to him. Lying awake, Lena stared at the ceiling, trying to chart the course that led to this nightmare, and trying even harder to understand why Moretti's cold promise to keep her safe was the most comforting thing she had heard in weeks. Going to the school was no escape. Instead, her eyes were fixed on the car's side mirrors, tracking every vehicle, every unknown face. Irina sat beside her, a quiet, hyper-aware presence, her hand never far from the weapon Lena knew she carried. Thomas drove, while Victor's follow car stayed glued to their bumper, a 3-person armed detail for a 2-hour art class for children. The level of force was so absurd it was almost a dark joke. Keep to the building's edge, Irina ordered as Lena got out. Stay out of the open lot. If I tell you to run, you do it, no hesitation. I'm going into a school, not a war zone. To a real threat, they are the same thing. Irina's face was unmoving stone. 2 hours? And then we are out. The children mobbed Lena, a joyous storm of voices telling her everything she'd missed. A little girl, Sophie, hugged Lena's leg. We were sad you left, she said. The teacher said you were sick. I'm feeling much better. Lena knelt, forcing a smile she prayed looked real. So what amazing thing are we going to create today? The next 120 minutes were a blur of finger paint, glitter, and the beautiful chaos of childhood. Lena helped erect a cardboard castle, brokered a delicate piece over building blocks, and read 3 stories to a rapt audience. For a short time, she nearly forgot the soldier standing guard outside her door. A fragile sense of the ordinary appeared, only to be fractured by the reflection of Irina, the other teacher's raw fear a mirror to her own. That illusion dissolved into air. As Thomas's car approached, Lena said her goodbyes, falling into formation behind Irina. The security detail closed around them like a steel cage, and she felt the press of 100 eyes from the school's windows. "Is it always this severe?" she asked as the vehicle moved. "When I came here before, were they watching me even then?" "Always," Irina stated, her voice devoid of doubt. "And you never thought to tell me?" "It was not information you needed. It is now." The drive back was a vacuum of silence. Lena watched the world pass by, every memory now poisoned by the truth. How many hidden cameras had cataloged her existence? How many stolen photographs of her lay buried in some lightless file? The sight of Moretti in the grand hall made her halt, her body freezing mid-step. "How was it?" he bit out. "Fine. The children were happy to see me." "Any complications?" "No." Her eyes darted to Irina, who gave a nearly invisible shake of her head. Everything unfolded with 100% normalcy. "Good." He started to walk away, then stopped. "I need you at dinner tonight. We have company." A frigid knot of dread formed in Lena's gut. What kind of company? "Business partners. You are my wife. You will greet them, you will be pleasant, and you will vanish the second I tell you to." His delivery was cold, like dictating clauses in a contract. "Mara is seeing to your preparations. Dinner is at 7. He was gone before a response could form, leaving her alone with Irina. "What was that?" Lena breathed. "You are being shown," Irina said flatly. "We should go. Mara has your briefing." Mara was already there, pulling gowns from a walk-in wardrobe. She met their gaze as they entered, her face an unreadable slate. Did he explain the evening's purpose? Barely. What's this really about? "Mr. Moretti has matters to attend to. Your presence is a projection of domestic tranquility, a potent symbol of power." Mara held up a gown of midnight blue. "This will do. It's subtle, yet it telegraphs wealth." "So I'm a prop," Lena stated, her voice hollow. "You are his wife. That is different." Mara laid the dress down and began selecting jewelry. "These are dangerous men, Lena. You must be careful. Do not ask about their affairs. Do not offer your thoughts. Your only role is to smile and let Mr. Moretti control the room. And if they speak to me directly, keep your answers short and always defer to your husband." Mara's look was intense. "This isn't a school trip. These men hunt for weakness. You will give them none." 2 hours evaporated. Lena stared at the woman in the mirror. The gown fit like a second skin. The jewels were understated, but undeniably expensive. Mara had woven her hair into a severe, elegant style. She looked like she belonged in this world he had built. She hated it. "Are you ready?" Mara asked. "No." "Good. That means you're paying attention." Mara led her toward the dining hall, a room she had seen only once before, on the day she was married. The space was transformed. Candlelight gleamed off china that cost more than a car, and wine chilled in ornate crystal. By the hearth, Moretti spoke in low tones with Victor. A black suit turned his entire frame into a weapon. His eyes found Lena, and something unreadable flickered in their depths before it was gone. "You look adequate," he judged. "That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me," Lena shot back, the words escaping before she could stop them. The corner of Victor's mouth twitched, but Moretti's face was stone. "Our guests arrive in 10 minutes. Sit next to me. If they ask how we met, it was through friends. An immediate spark. If they ask of your family, you will be deliberately vague. Your father was in finance, your mother was a teacher, no more details. You want me to lie? I want you to survive the night without causing a catastrophe. He stepped closer. Lena smelled his expensive cologne, and under it, the sharp tang of immense pressure. Or maybe it was just calculation. These men are not my friends, Lena. They aren't even allies. They are sharks that smell blood in the water. You will not be the blood. And if I'm not, the consequences will not be yours alone. His eyes locked on hers, and she saw a new glint there, a hint of concern, not for her, she knew, but for the stability of his empire. Still, it was there. Follow my lead, can you do that? Lena could only nod, her voice trapped in her throat. The doorbell chimed. Moretti's expression became ice as he offered his arm. Showtime! She took it, and they moved as one to meet the wolves. There were 4 men. The leader, near 60, had silver hair and a face carved from granite. He named himself Dmitry Volkov, and a deep chill settled in Lena's bones. This was the creditor, the orchestrator of the terror at her family's home. So, we finally meet the famous bride, Volkov purred, his lips on her hand making her skin crawl. Adrian, you failed to mention her beauty. My private life is not a topic of negotiation, Moretti replied smoothly. Dmitri, you know Victor, and this is Marcus Chen, Antonio Ricci, and James Brennan. The other 3 came forward. Chen, maybe 40, had a predator's eyes and a smile that was just a shape his mouth made. Ricci's grandfatherly act was the most terrifying thing about him. Brennan was a mountain of a man, at least 6'5", with hands that looked like concrete blocks. They moved to the dining hall where Lena was seated between Moretti and Volkov. She focused on her breathing, willing her hands to stay still as the servers began their work. How long have you 2 been married? Chen asked from across the table. 6 weeks, Moretti cut in before Lena could answer. A quiet ceremony, just for the family. How romantic. Volkov's voice was heavy with sarcasm. I never knew you had such a sentimental side, Adrian. There is a great deal about me you don't know, Dmitri. Clearly. Volkov turned his full attention to Lena. So tell me, dear girl, how did you 2 meet? Lena's mind went white. She felt Moretti's gaze on her, a silent warning. Through mutual friends, she stammered. At a fundraiser. We just started talking, and it was instant. A fundraiser? Ricci repeated, his smile unwavering. And which one was that? Does the name matter? Moretti's voice was low but carried a clear threat. We're here for business, not to reminisce about my courtship. Of course, Ricci raised his glass. To the happy couple. They all echoed the toast. Lena drank, but the wine felt like ashes in her mouth. The talk shifted to business, to shipping lanes and territories and names she did not know. She ate without tasting, trying to fade into the wallpaper, but Volkov's stare was a physical weight on her skin. Your father is Robert Ward, isn't he? Volkov's question shattered the tense quiet. The room went dead silent. Lena's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. He is, she said, every nerve firing. We did some work together, a nice man, a complete disaster with money. Volkov's smile was a razor. I'm so glad his debts were resolved in such an agreeable manner. The implied threat poisoned the air. The truth was now laid bare for everyone to see. Lena was the payment for her father's debt to Moretti. A commodity, not a wife. Under the table, Moretti's hand clamped onto her thigh, a violent, silent command to not move. His grip was crushing. Robert and I came to an arrangement, Moretti stated, his voice laced with cold fury. His family is now under my permanent protection. How noble. Volkov's eyes shone with malice. I am sure she'll be a very valuable asset. The pressure on Lena's leg became unbearable. She bit the inside of her cheek to keep from crying out. She is my wife, Moretti declared. That is the only thing that matters. The subject changed, but the damage was done. Lena saw it in their eyes: pity, amusement, cold assessment. She was a liability, a crack in Moretti's armor. The dinner dragged on for another agonizing hour. When dessert was served, Lena's face ached from the forced smile, and her leg throbbed from Moretti's grip. At last he stood. Gentlemen, we'll continue this in my study. Lena, you are excused. The dismissal felt like a pardon, and Lena took it without a second's thought. She mumbled her goodbyes and fled on trembling legs, feeling Volkov's hungry eyes on her back the entire way. Mara was waiting for her in the hallway. How bad? Worse than I imagined, Lena's voice cracked. Volkov knows. They all know. They know I was the price for my father's debt. They likely knew before they walked in. Nothing gets past Dmitry Volkov. Mara led her toward the stairs. Come, let's get you out of that dress. But as they reached the second floor, angry voices erupted from the hall below. Lena froze, recognizing Moretti's. It was sharp and filled with a chilling rage. You had no business bringing that up at my table, he snarled. Bringing what up? The truth? Volkov's laugh was a raw, ugly thing. The pretense is useless, Adrian. We all know how you came by her. This charade changes nothing. My private life is my own concern. It becomes my concern when it exposes a vulnerability. The girl is a risk. You are compromising yourself to protect her, and it shows. I protect what is mine. And therein lies the problem. The edge in Volkov's voice sharpened. You've grown sentimental. You acquire some nobody to settle a debt, then display her like a prize. The whispers have started, Adrian. They wonder if the blade has dulled. Let them wonder. This is counsel. Dispose of her. Send her back to her pathetic family. Remind the world of the man you were before this farce of a marriage. A heavy silence filled the room. Lena held her breath, waiting for Moretti's words. Leave my home, Moretti finally uttered, his voice glacial, and do not return uninvited. This is a mistake. My only mistake was allowing you to insult my wife at my own table. Should it happen again, my response will be less civil. Footsteps echoed, followed by the definitive slam of the front door. Then, absolute silence. Mara's gentle touch found Lena's arm. Come, you were not meant to hear this. But Lena was frozen, her mind struggling to make sense of the moment. Moretti had defended her, had cast Volkov out over an insult. The very man who swore she meant nothing. Why would he do that? She breathed, lost in confusion. Because you are his wife, Mara answered, as if it were the simplest fact in the world. And whatever his heart feels, he honors that title. They went to Lena's room, Mara helping with the gown. But Lena's thoughts were trapped, replaying the cold rage in Moretti's voice as he banished Volkov. She lay in bed, staring into the darkness, attempting to piece together the puzzle of her husband. One moment she was an object, the next he was defending her name. He called her insignificant, yet held her as though terrified she might simply fade away. Sleep, she knew, would not visit her this night. When exhaustion finally took her, her sleep was a chaotic storm of cold eyes, frigid touches, and voices that branded her a worthy acquisition. She awoke to harsh sunlight and Irina standing over the bed. "Get up," Irina said. "Mr. Moretti expects you." Lena's stomach tightened into a knot. "Now?" "You are late. Move." She pulled on clothes and followed Irina to Moretti's study, her dread mounting with each step. She was sure he meant to call last night a failure, to name her an embarrassment, and to terminate their agreement, sending her back to her father. But when she entered his office, Moretti was not alone. A woman stood near his desk, perhaps in her mid-40s, with sharp lines to her face, a severe suit, and a fine leather briefcase. "This is Catherine Moore," Moretti said, cutting past any formality. "She is to be your instructor." Lena stared, mute. "Instructing me in what?" "How to survive in this world." He gestured toward a chair. "Sit." Lena sat. Catherine remained standing, her eyes intense and analytical, dissecting her. "You are utterly unprepared for the circles you must now navigate as my wife. Catherine will teach you conduct, how to read between the lines, how to assess people, and how to defend yourself." "I do not need a defender. I have Irina." "Irina guards your body. Catherine will guard the rest." He stood and turned to the window, a figure of melodrama against the light. "These people will use you to get to me, Lena. They will ask seemingly harmless questions that are traps. They will offer friendship to mine for information. They will find your every weakness and exploit it without mercy. You will be ready." "So this is some form of spy training?" Catherine's lips barely twitched. "A variation. We will start with basic situational awareness and proceed from there. And if I refuse?" "You will not," Moretti said to the window, his tone final. "Because the only other choice is to be a prisoner in this house forever. Is that what you want?" Lena looked from Catherine's cool, controlled expression to Moretti's unbending silhouette. The challenge had been made. "When do we start?" she asked softly. "We begin now." Catherine retrieved a folder from her case, its latch clicking sharply in the silence. "We are going to take last night apart. I want every single detail from that dinner, however insignificant." For the next 2 hours, Catherine conducted a forensic examination of the evening. The precise phrasing Volkov used, the power dynamics of the table seating, the make of Chen's watch and what it said of his current assets. Lena complied, the exercise exposing a vast, invisible world she had never known existed. Catherine proceeded to diagram the unseen architecture of that room. The currents of power Lena never felt, the secret loyalties she failed to notice, the veiled threats she took for pleasantries. "You are not unintelligent," Catherine noted during a pause. "But your innocence is a lethal liability. It's a condition that must be cured, or it will kill you," Lena countered. "I'm not trying to be an operative. I just want to survive." "In this world, my dear," Catherine said, "the two are precisely the same thing." Catherine snapped the folder shut, her initial evaluation complete. "We will have sessions 3 times a week, 2 hours each. When my work is done, you will be able to walk into a den of wolves and emerge without a scratch." "Is that a page from your own life story?" Lena asked. For a stark, unguarded instant, a flicker of something, pain perhaps, or its ghost, crossed Catherine's face. "It is. And I survived, as will you." When Catherine had gone, Lena remained in the sudden vacuum of Moretti's office, her perception of reality completely upended. So this was the substance of her new life, a cage of bodyguards, lessons in subterfuge, and learning to hear the malice in a simple conversation. The door opened and Moretti entered, having missed the end of her debrief. "Her assessment?" he asked. She thinks I am completely unaware. An accurate observation. He moved to his seat behind the desk. But you are intelligent enough to learn. Catherine would have refused the position otherwise. What is the strategic point of this? Lena pushed. This security, these lessons. You could just keep me isolated. It would be far simpler. Simpler, he remarked, rolling a pen between his fingers, is not always superior. You were right in your fear. This marriage makes you a vulnerability, but it also makes you a potential asset once you are properly shaped. Your youth will make them underestimate you. That is a considerable tactical advantage. So, this is all still business? Everything is business. The words, however, were aimed somewhere past her, a subtle flaw that betrayed his certainty. You may leave. Rest. You have classes tomorrow, then Catherine on Wednesday. Lena stood, but paused at the doorway. Thank you. For last night, for dealing with Volkov. Moretti's fingers tightened on his pen. My actions were not to defend you. They were to defend my decision in choosing you. There is a vital distinction. Is there? His gaze finally met hers, and in that moment, she saw a hairline crack in his cold facade, a glimpse of something raw beneath. Yes, it is critical that you remember that. Lena left. The memory of that brief exposure seared into her mind. Moretti was projecting a lie, to her, to himself, to everyone. He could dress his actions in the cold language of strategy, making her a pawn in his game. But his instincts told a different story. The real question was what that story was, and whether she had the strength to find out. She spent the afternoon in the library, a book unread in her lap, her eyes fixed on the grounds outside. Irina was a constant, silent shadow she was surprisingly growing used to. As the setting sun cast long, dark fingers across the lawn, an anomaly in the garden snagged her attention. It was a shape, moving with quiet purpose through the hedges. Too distant for details, but it was undeniably a watcher. Irina, Lena whispered, and the bodyguard was at her side instantly. What do you see? There, by the fountain. We are being watched. Without a word, Irina took out a phone, speaking a series of sharp commands in Russian. In moments, Victor and two other guards were sweeping the garden with methodical precision. By the time they reached the spot, however, the observer was gone without a trace. Victor came to the library to report, his face a mask of cold professionalism. Did you get a look at them? Just a shape in the dark. They vanished before I could see anything clearly. Male or female? I couldn't tell. Victor and Irina exchanged a heavy look, an unspoken acknowledgement that this was a disaster. Stay put. Keep away from the glass. They left, leaving Lena's heart hammering with the cold certainty that their security was a lie. An unseen presence had breached the estate's defenses, violating the illusion of a sanctuary to stand watch. Dinner was a tableau of dread. When Moretti finally appeared, his face was carved from stone, fury simmering just beneath the surface. We found tracks, he stated, his voice clipping the silence. Someone was in the garden. They walked past our perimeter and stared at this house for 20 solid minutes before your men saw a thing. How could a failure like this even happen? That is precisely what I am determining. He made a sharp, dismissive gesture toward his untouched meal. This was no accident, Lena. They are hunting you. The photograph was the start, and this is the escalation. They want you to feel their eyes on your skin. To what end? To break you with terror, both of us. It's a show of force to prove they can get to you anytime they wish. The clatter of his fork against the porcelain was like a gunshot. I'm doubling the guard again. You will not go anywhere without a 3-man detail. That includes moving around inside this house. Adrian, this isn't a negotiation. The use of her first name was so sudden it stole her protest. An enemy wants to hurt you to get to me. I will not allow that to happen. Because it would make you look weak. Exactly. His gaze locked onto hers. And because it's my duty to keep you safe. There it was, that tone of ownership that should have felt wrong but instead strangely made her feel protected. What if you can't stop them? Lena whispered. What if they get to me? Then they will wish they had never been born. The ice in his voice sent a shiver through her entire body. My reputation is built on making examples of men who defy me. Whoever is behind this is about to learn that lesson in a way they will never forget. He walked to the window, staring into the blackness outside. Lena watched the man she was contracted to, trying to decipher the tangle of warring feelings inside her. She was supposed to hate him, to be counting the days and planning her escape from their deal. But a wild urge was growing inside her, a need to go to him, to face the coming threat together. It was a dangerous, idiotic thought, one that grew stronger every day, and Lena had no defense against it. The next 48 hours unfolded in a thick quiet, a silence more alarming than any siren. Lena drifted through the house like a ghost waiting for judgment, every nerve alive to each shadow and sound. The guards were a constant, suffocating presence. Men with guns in the halls, cameras recording her movements, and Victor sweeping the grounds hourly. The mansion was now a gilded prison, and Lena was its prized captive. Catherine shattered that silence on Wednesday morning, arriving with coffee and a tablet lit with a string of portraits. Time for a pop quiz, she said, taking a seat opposite Lena in the library. Start naming faces. Lena's eyes found the first picture, a middle-aged woman in a ball gown at some opulent party. I don't know who this is. You will. That's Vivian Castellano. Her husband runs the Port Authority, which means he owns half the shipping in this city. She's on husband number 3, has 2 sons from the first, and can't keep her mouth shut at parties. Catherine swiped the screen. And this is Lin Chen, Marcus Chen's wife. She speaks 4 languages, has an economics degree from Harvard, and is always dismissed as just a pretty face. A fatal mistake. Lena finally cut in. Why are we only looking at the women? Because they will soon be your allies or your enemies. You need to know which is which before you even breathe the same air. Catherine brought up another photo. This was a younger woman, near Lena's own age, with platinum hair and a smile that was pure predator. Natasha Volkov, Dmitri's daughter. She's your most immediate and serious threat. A knot of ice formed in Lena's gut. How? She is brilliant, merciless, and completely devoted to her father. If Dmitri decides you're a problem, Natasha is the tool he'll use to fix it. Catherine lowered the tablet. The world you're about to enter is their playground. They'll smile, they'll invite you to things, they'll ask about your new life. Every word is a mission to gather intel. Every second is a test. So the rule is to trust no one? The rule is to trust your own judgment and start taking them apart with the same precision they'll use on you. Catherine stood and went to the window, her bearing one of cool control. I've been in your shoes, young, new to all this, and married to one of these men. I thought the way to survive was to make myself small and quiet. And how did that strategy work? My ignorance got my husband killed. Catherine's tone was flat, empty of feeling. I didn't see the threat until it was too late. I trusted the wrong man and confided in the wrong woman at the wrong party. She turned, her eyes boring into Lena. You will not make my mistakes. You have to learn 10 times faster. For the next hour, Catherine grilled her on the faces, connections, and sordid histories. Lena's head throbbed, but a picture was forming, a dark web of power, loyalty, and blood. You're learning, Catherine said while packing her things. Next time, we work on reading body language. Until then, learn these faces. When Catherine was gone, Lena sat with the tablet, the faces of her enemies glowing in the dark room. They were the hunters in Moretti's jungle, the predators she had to outwit just to stay alive. As Lena stared at Natasha Volkov's image, Mara appeared in the doorway, the bearer of an impossible shock. You have a visitor, Mara said, her face a careful blank. Who? Your mother. The words seemed to bend the air in the room. Lena flew from her chair, the tablet clattering to the carpet. What? Where? She's downstairs, Mara replied softly. Mr. Moretti is with her. He sent me to give you the rules. The rules for what? For the visit. You get 15 minutes. You are not to speak about this house, Mr. Moretti's business, or your deal. Victor will remain in the room the entire time. Are you serious? I can't see my own mother alone. I'm only repeating Mr. Moretti's orders. If you want to see her, you will follow his terms. White-hot fury flared in Lena, a need to scream for the rights she'd lost, but her mother was downstairs. 15 minutes felt like a lifetime compared to nothing. Take me, she said. Her mother sat in a small parlor, perched on a velvet chair like she was afraid to leave a mark. She seemed older than Lena remembered, more gray in her hair, the lines of sorrow cut deeper around her eyes. The second she saw Lena, her breath caught and she was on her feet. My baby, she breathed. They met in the middle of the room and Lena collapsed into her mother's hug. The old scent of lavender was a lifeline to a time she was safe, and for a moment Lena was a little girl again. Then the cold truth of this house, of who she was now, came rushing back. Are you okay? Her mother asked, holding her back to search her face. They said you were, but I had to know. I am, Mom. I really am. Lena was sharply aware of Victor by the door, and of the near certainty that Moretti was listening from some hidden place. What about Dad? Is he okay? We're holding on. Her mother's eyes were red from too much crying. Your father wanted to come so badly, but they told us. I know he can't, not now. Lena gripped her mother's hands. I'm fine, I promise. This place? Her mother's gaze drifted around, taking in the grand furniture and the suffocating wealth. It's so big. Are you here by yourself? With my husband. The word tasted like poison. What about the staff? I haven't met them. Your husband, it all happened so fast. Her mother's voice started to crack. I'm so sorry, Lena. This is all our fault. If your father had just... Mom, stop, please. Lena saw Victor check his watch. Their time was running out. It is what my life is now. I am adjusting. But are you happy? The question was a physical blow. Happiness? The word felt like a foreign language. I am safe, she said, offering the only truth she had. That is what matters. Her mother's protest died on her lips as the door swept open, revealing Moretti. He was now clad in a tailored suit, a fortress of fabric that made him an untouchable magnate. With his approach, Lena felt her mother's body go rigid beside her. "Mrs. Ward," he began, his tone a polished weapon of politeness. "I hope the visit met your expectations." It did. Thank you for the privilege. Her mother's words were thin, brittle things. I had to see for myself that she was all right. "Lena wants for nothing here. You have my word." His hand settled on Lena's shoulder, a brand of possession that made her flesh recoil. "Unfortunately, I must cut this short. Pressing matters demand my attention." The dismissal was absolute. Her mother, recognizing the command, reached for her purse. "Please," Lena begged, "just another moment." "Your allotment of time has expired." Moretti's grip tightened, a silent emphasis. "Victor will show your mother the way." Lena clutched her mother in a final embrace, desperately trying to memorize the scent of lavender, the feel of home. "I love you," came the fractured whisper. "And I you, my sweet girl, forever." Then Victor was guiding her mother away while Moretti steered Lena toward the grand staircase. In that single motion, it was over. Lena held her fragile composure until the second-floor landing, where the dam of her control finally shattered. She tore her arm from his grasp and spun to confront him. Those 15 calculated minutes with her mother, after 2 months of crushing silence, felt to Lena like the most exquisite form of torment. His cool response to her pain was a stark pronouncement. All her human connections were now gifts from his hand. She raged at the charade they performed for her mother, only to be silenced by his final branding claim. She was his wife. But Lena knew she was a prisoner, and this visit had been nothing but a gilded tour of her cage. Moretti's logic was a chilling algorithm. The visit was merely a tactic to manage a nuisance at his gates, a problem threatening unwanted attention. He provided the smallest possible concession to quell the disturbance. Her scream that a mother is not an issue to be resolved crashed against the unyielding axiom of his world. Every person was simply an asset to be managed. He stalked toward her, pinning her with his proximity to the wall. "Do you desire more family visits? You will earn them. You will prove you can be trusted not to utter one word that might see them removed." "You couldn't." "I couldn't. But Dmitri Volkov could, as could Marcus Chen or Antonio Ricci." His fist struck the wall near her face. She flinched as if hit. "Your parents know you are here. This knowledge makes them a weakness in my defenses. The less they understand of my business, this estate, or my life, the longer their own lives will continue. Do you follow?" Lena's breaths came in frantic, shallow bursts. The immense heat from his body was a palpable threat, his cologne laced with the sharp tang of rage. "I follow," she managed to say. "Good." He remained impossibly close. "Your mother inquired about your happiness. How did you answer?" "I said I was safe." "A clever response." His gaze bored into hers, excavating her thoughts. "And is that true? Are you safe?" "Here." "With you?" The query stunned her. "I don't know. Am I?" "That," he said, "I do not know either." He finally stepped back, raking a hand through his hair. "This house is being watched. My security has been penetrated twice. Until I learn by whom and for what purpose, I can guarantee nothing." "That offers little comfort." "My goal is not to comfort you. It is to keep you alive." He pivoted toward his study. "Remain in your rooms tonight and bolt the door. Irina will stand guard outside should you need assistance." He vanished down the hall, leaving Lena with a heart that battered her ribs and the ghost of his heat on her skin. Sleep was an impossibility for Lena that night. She lay suspended in the oppressive dark, deciphering the groans of the great house. Each creak was an intruder, each whisper of wind a violation at her window. Long after midnight, she gave up the fight and drifted onto the balcony. Irina was supposed to be on watch, but a quick glance showed an unnervingly empty corridor. A cold dread coiled in her gut. Where was her guard? Lena snatched her phone, pulling up Moretti's contact, a number she swore she would never call. Her thumb hovered, trembling over the screen, when a sound from the floor below turned her to ice. Strained, muffled voices. She crept to her door, easing it open a sliver. The hallway was silent as a tomb, but the activity downstairs was unmistakable. Too many footsteps. A deep wrongness settled in the air. Ignoring every impulse to hide, Lena slipped out and moved toward the stairs. She clung to the shadows, her body pressed flat against the wall as the words grew distinct. The garden! She's been gone an hour at least. Ice flooded Lena's veins. Daring a look over the banister, she saw Victor Moretti and 3 others in the foyer. Between them, a form lay shrouded by a sheet on the cold marble. Identify, Moretti's voice commanded, devoid of all emotion. Maria, the housekeeper. Victor pulled back the cover. Lena caught a glimpse of the woman's face, a fleeting image of horror before she had to look away. Single shot to the head. Professional. Maria, the woman with the photograph, the one who had been too afraid to talk. Irina's position, Moretti pressed. Perimeter sweep, Victor stated, his jaw a line of granite. We repositioned everyone after the last breach. The timing was too perfect. Someone knew our protocols, knew exactly when to strike. A rat, Moretti hissed, the words low and lethal. Someone in my household is aiding the hunter. The evidence points to that conclusion, Moretti agreed, his gaze leaving the corpse. Find them. I want everyone on this staff broken down. I want their finances, their calls, their entire histories dissected. We have a traitor, and I want their head delivered to me. And the girl? Lock down the East Wing. Nothing moves in or out without my direct approval. And find Irina. I want to know why she was not at her post. Lena's pulse was a frantic drum against her ears. She had to get back, to disappear before being seen. But as she retreated, a hand clamped over her mouth, silencing her scream. An arm locked around her waist, lifting her effortlessly from the floor. Do not move, a female voice breathed into her ear. I will not harm you, but you must follow me, immediately. Lena fought, twisting against a grip of pure steel. She was pulled backward, away from the scene below, and into a passage she'd never seen. Cease your struggle, the woman warned. My only purpose is your survival. They turned a corner, and she was abruptly set free. Lena spun, her gasp catching in her throat as she faced Irina. What on earth is going on? Lena's voice was a ragged whisper. I am moving you to a defensible location, Irina replied, her face a mask of grim purpose. Maria's death was not random, it was a warning. A warning about what? About what happens to anyone who tries to help you. Irina took Lena's arm, pulling her toward a door at the end of the hall. Maria was not your enemy. She was trying to warn you. Warn me of what? Irina shoved the door open, revealing a tight stairwell, plunging into utter blackness. Of the one truly pulling the strings in this game. This is all completely insane. It will make sense, Irina promised, starting down into the dark and forcing Lena to follow. But first we have to get you out of the main house. If I am correct, no room on the upper floors is secure any longer. They descended into blackness, the path lit by the solitary, weak beam of Irina's phone. The staircase felt endless, the air growing colder and heavier with every step. At the bottom, they stepped out into what looked to be a wine cellar. After bolting the door, Irina led Lena through rows of priceless wine bottles to a hidden chamber at the very back. Inside was a cot, a table, and a steel cabinet. "What is this room?" Lena asked. "A safe hold. Mr. Moretti had it built when he bought the property. It is known to virtually no one." Irina produced a key, opened the cabinet, and removed a pistol, checking the magazine with an expert's economy of motion. "You will stay here until I can neutralize the threat. You can't just leave me down here." "I won't. I'll be right outside." Irina's eyes locked onto hers. "But I need you to trust me implicitly, Lena. Can you do that?" "I don't even know who you are." "I know, but right now I am the only friend you have." Irina's phone vibrated, and a quick look at the screen drew a quiet curse. "They've started the search for you. I need to go upstairs and create a misdirection." "What do I do if they find me?" "They won't. This room isn't on any of the blueprints. As far as anyone is concerned, this place doesn't exist." Irina turned back to the door. "This door opens for me and me alone. I don't care if it's Mr. Moretti, Victor, or God himself knocking, only I get in." "But how will I know it's you?" 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. She rapped the pattern against the wood. "That's our code. Any other sound, you stay hidden and you stay silent." Before Lena could agree, Irina was gone. The heavy bolt slid home, sealing Lena inside the cellar with nothing but a cot and her own spiraling terror. She sat, trying to process the chaos. Maria was dead. A viper was loose on Moretti's grounds, and her own guard had locked her away because the mansion itself had become a killing floor. The walls felt as if they were closing in. Lena pulled her knees to her chest, focusing on the rhythm of her own breath. In and out. Stay calm. Do not let the panic win. Time dissolved into a meaningless blur. It could have been minutes or hours. She had no way to tell. Her phone had no service, and a single bare bulb gave no hint of day or night. Then a sound. Footsteps right outside. Lena went rigid, every nerve ending firing. 3 knocks, a short silence, then 2 more. She threw the bolt and opened the door. Irina stood there, her face a mask of exhaustion and strain. "We have a serious problem," Irina stated flatly. "Mr. Moretti knows you're missing. He's locked down the entire estate. He thinks you've been taken." "You didn't tell him where I am?" "I can't. Not yet." Irina began to pace the small room. "I need more time to find the traitor before you just reappear. If the wrong person finds out you're safe, they'll just try again." "So what's the plan?" "We watch and we wait." Irina held up her phone, revealing a grid of security camera views. "I've patched into the main surveillance network. We can see everything from in here." On the primary screen, Lena saw Moretti in his study, Victor and his men standing by. His expression was glacial rage, but his hands were balled into bloodless fists. "He looks furious," Lena breathed. "He's terrified," Irina corrected, swiping to another camera. "I have never seen him like this. He's torn this house apart looking for you." "Because I'm his property, his little investment." "If that's the story you need to tell yourself," Irina said, her gaze sharp. "But I've worked for Mr. Moretti for 3 years. I have never seen him lose control this way. Not for business, not for money, not for anything. Lena watched as Moretti suddenly stood and swept his desk clear in one savage motion before stalking out of the room. The cameras tracked him down the corridor, through the foyer, and out onto the grounds, his hunt driven by a desperation that echoed like a hollow pain in Lena's chest. "I have to tell him I'm all right," she said. "Not yet. Give me 2 more hours. It's enough time to narrow the list of suspects." Irina switched camera angles. "Right now, it could be anyone. Half the staff is terrified, and the other half looks guilty just because they're panicking. I just need a little time to cut through the noise. And if you can't find them in 2 hours, then you walk out there and we deal with what comes next." Irina's jaw was tight, her hope for a cleaner solution fading. Lena's eyes stayed glued to the screens as Irina flipped through the feeds. The kitchen staff huddled together, a knot of nerves. Security teams swept across the lawns. Mara stood watch outside Lena's bedroom, her face a perfect mask of anguish. And Moretti was a ghost, appearing everywhere at once. His search growing with a ferocity that was beginning to scare Lena more than anything else that night. "There," Irina whispered, freezing an image and zooming in. "Look at that!" The monitor showed a shape moving through the gardens. The person was dressed head to toe in black, moving with purpose toward the east wing. "Who is that?" Lena asked. "No idea, but they have no business being there." Irina was already moving. "Stay here. Lock this door. Don't open it for anyone." "Wait." But Irina had already melted into the darkness, swift and silent. Lena slammed the bolt home and turned back to the monitors, her heart hammering. She watched Irina appear on the garden camera, shadowing the unknown figure. She saw them both disappear around a hedge, out of the camera's view. And then the screen went black. All of them. Every camera died at the same instant. Lena stared at the blank monitors as a cold, pure panic began to choke the air from her lungs. Something was terribly, horribly wrong. She was already moving for the door when she heard them. Footsteps in the wine cellar beyond. More than one person, their pace unhurried. Lena stumbled back, her eyes frantically scanning the tiny room for a place to hide that wasn't there. The footsteps stopped right outside. A voice muffled by the thick wood called out, "I know you're in there, Lena." It wasn't Irina's voice, it was a man's. It sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Come on out. I'm not here to hurt you. We just need to talk." Lena flattened herself against the cold stone, trying to make herself stop breathing. "We can do this the easy way," the voice continued, "or we can do this the hard way, but either way that door is coming open. Just make it easy on yourself." There was a pause. Then a woman's voice cut in. "Bring it down." The sound of metal slamming into wood exploded through the room as the door began to splinter. Lena looked wildly for a weapon, but the cell was empty. The door crashed open, and standing in the frame was the very last person on earth Lena would have ever expected to see. Mara. Just then, a figure emerges from the shadows behind Lena. He is tall, with dark hair and the same terrifyingly cold eyes as Moretti. He smirks, greeting her with "Hello, sister-in-law," and says his name is Elias. It's time, he adds, to talk about his brother. Lena's world shrinks to this man, a mirror image of Moretti, radiating the same dangerous power. But here's the crucial difference. Where Adrian projects a cold, disciplined control, Elias exudes a raw and chaotic threat. Lena can only whisper Mara's name, asking why she is here. Mara's answer is like ice. "Doing my job." She steps inside, her face a mixture of apology and hard resolve, adding, "I'm sorry, but this has to be done." As Lena reels from the betrayal, Elias simply says, I told you I'm Elias Moretti. The man closes the distance, backing Lena against the wall. Adrian's little brother, he explains. The one he threw out 5 years ago for questioning the boss. Lena is completely lost. He tells her, "You don't need to understand. You just need to obey." He motions toward the door, saying he prefers quiet but isn't afraid to use force. Lena demands, "Where's Irina?" He replies casually, "Tucked away in the garden. She'll have one hell of a headache, but she'll live." His smile isn't like Adrian's. It's made of sharp edges. "Unlike my dear brother, I don't take lives without a very good reason." Lena spits that Adrian will find him, but he cuts her off. "And do what? Tear the place down?" "My dear, he's already started." Elias holds up a phone, showing a live feed of Adrian in a state of total breakdown, stalking the halls in a silent rage. "He's losing his mind looking for you. It's quite something. I didn't think he had it in him." Lena denies it. "He doesn't care. I'm just an asset." Elias seems to find this hilarious. "Sure, you keep telling yourself that. I've been watching you two for weeks. The way he looks at you when he thinks no one can see. That's not business, sister-in-law. That's something much messier." The truth hits Lena like a physical blow. "You were the one watching me. The picture, Maria, everything." Elias confirms it. Maria was just Mara's contact. With a horrifyingly casual air, Elias notes the old woman grew a conscience, a complication that needed to be removed. He then turns back to Lena, explaining his whole plan was a test to find Adrian's breaking point. When she asks if she is that weakness, his confirmation is both immediate and absolute. As Elias urges them to leave, Lena's eyes search Mara's for the protector she knew, but finds only the blank, efficient mask of a stranger. Her question of how long the deception has gone on is met with the devastating truth that rewrites their entire past. Revealing Mara's loyalty was sworn long before she ever met Lena. Mara's confession is a strange mix of sincere regret that's buried under the cold reality of her actions. When Lena demands to know what the ultimate goal is, Elias's casual demeanor cracks, showing the raw, obsessive purpose beneath, to take back a life he feels was stolen from him. Elias paints his revenge as a simple act of rebalancing the scales, an eye for an eye. When Lena insists she is not a pawn, he waves away her identity completely. To him, she is nothing more than the key to Adrian's soul, the perfect weapon for his vengeance, a fact he emphasizes with the bruising strength of his grip. Mara trails behind, her face a mask of conflict, her quiet, a loud confession of guilt. They move down through the manor's secret veins, the wine cellar, the hidden passages, the servants' corridors. A descent into the family's rotten core, where the oppressive silence of the grounds magnified Lena's utter solitude. In this space, the design of Elias's mental assault is laid bare. He isn't hiding, he's directing a play. He commandeers his brother's own security network, forcing it to watch his theater of pain. His aim isn't freedom, but a flawlessly executed curtain raise, where a trusted friend will deliver the deepest wound. Victor, the security chief, grasps the horrifying scene in an instant. At his challenge, Elias yanks Lena back, making her a living shield, the physical proof of her value as leverage. His demand is the first move in a deadly game, played not for territory, but for the shattering of his brother's mind. The notion of his own death earns a sneer from Elias, his certainty built on a cold, precise reading of his brother's soul. He knows that in their brutal world of men, caring for someone is a death sentence. Lena is now the raw nerve ending he will torture until Adrian's whole empire of control collapses. Lena's question reveals she has no concept of what drives her captor. Elias clarifies his aim isn't a merciful end, but the slow torment of a life ruined. He wants to carve a wound into his brother identical to his own, to watch him lose the one thing he cherishes most. Elias shatters Lena's last shield of denial with the detached cruelty of a phone. Its screen acts as a brutal portal to Adrian's heart, streaming the precise second his iron composure cracks. The sight of the blood leaving Adrian's face is the stark, irrefutable evidence of how much she means to him. Elias forces Lena to watch the emotional devastation, turning her into an audience for the weakness he now controls. Adrian's expression shifts through disbelief, then fury, then to pure terror, proving how deeply he is bound to her. To Elias, it is the flawless opening act. The snare is set. The terrifying rationale of Elias's plan becomes clear. A situation crafted for maximum anguish with no escape. He solidifies her status as an object by calling her collateral damage, a term that erases her humanity, reducing her to a regrettable consequence in their fraternal war. Lena's plea for sanity shatters against the unshakable foundation of Elias's history. His version of the past is absolute. 5 years ago, Adrian saved himself through an unforgivable betrayal, and the empire he now commands was built from the wreckage of Elias's existence. The statement that this fight concludes tonight triggers the final scene. From the darkness, Adrian appears, a lone form humming with tremendous controlled pressure. The scene is locked, and Elias's simple greeting, "Hello, brother," carries the full weight of their broken past. Elias's hand rests on Lena's shoulder, a steady, physical reminder of his power. Adrian tries to define this as a matter between them, but Elias coldly refutes him. Lena is the reason. She is not an observer, but the fatal weakness in Adrian's defenses. A point he proves by squeezing her shoulder hard. After listing his futile efforts to destroy Adrian's world, Elias exposes the single, ruinous flaw he found. In the toxically masculine code they live by, love isn't power, but a massive, stupid mistake. The charge hits not as a slight, but as a terminal diagnosis that freezes Adrian in place. Adrian's instinctive denial is fragile, shattered with the cruel choice Elias presents. The demand is engineered to compel a public surrender of pride, the sole coin of Adrian's realm. In the tortured, silent glance that passes between Adrian and Lena, the crushing gravity of this decision becomes brutally apparent. The plea that breaks from Adrian's lips is a cataclysmic moment. Love has broken the powerful man. Elias's victorious laugh is the sound of absolute triumph, having crafted the final humiliation. Adrian's following offer to trade his life is the complete and total capitulation of his pride. Elias callously rejects the offer, showing that the spectacle of disgrace is worth more than vengeance. He orchestrates the moment like a vicious director, using a sickened Mara as a tool to heighten the tension. His order for his brother to get on his knees is the next phase of this carefully planned degradation. Adrian obeys without pause, dropping to his knees on the damp ground to speak the words Elias has waited years to hear. His confession of selfishness and betrayal is stark and unvarnished. Though Elias instinctively shouts, "Liar," Adrian's voice holds the clear echo of a bitter, buried truth. Instead of mending the hurt, the apology only fuels Elias's entrenched fury. It cannot give back 2 stolen years. His rage reveals his real goal, not to be made whole, but to destroy. He presses the cold steel of a gun to Lena's temple, making his intentions plain. He will watch his brother lose it all. Elias lays out the last savage deal, her life in exchange for his. Adrian accepts instantly, and Lena finds her voice, denying she is worth such a price. But Adrian silences her objection with a final, powerful statement of her worth. redefining their world with one phrase: "You're worth everything." Believing these are his last moments, Adrian confesses not his sin against Elias, but his emotional neglect of Lena. He tears down the businesslike premise of their marriage, ending with a hesitant but deep declaration of love, a truth exposed only by the shadow of his own death. Elias meets this raw display of emotion with a cold laugh, waving it off as hollow words from a brute. But as he raises his weapon to pass sentence, the story is violently upended. Irina, thought to be dealt with, emerges, her claim that the feeling means everything, a direct challenge to his worldview. In a flash, the killing field is exposed as a tactical ambush. The power dynamic flips completely as Victor's men materialize, their guns turning the aggressors into prey. Irina's cool account of her escape highlights Elias's deadly mistake of misjudging his foes. The party has decisively ended. In the static scene, Elias's mental fortitude audibly fractures. Yet the breaking point comes from inside his own circle. Mara's gun lowers, morality finally winning over loyalty. Her silent capitulation marks the total disintegration of his command, and he hisses the word at her: "Traitor." Mara spells out the ethical boundary she refused to cross, drawing a line between mind games and cold-blooded murder. Her charge that he has lost himself seems to be the final mental strike that breaks him. In that moment of collapse, Adrian moves, pulling Lena to safety and finishing the standoff. Amid the disarray that follows, Adrian's attention is fixed, his urgent care for Lena eclipsing everything. Her direct question, "You love me?" makes him face the public fallout of his private confession. His dry confirmation accepts that a secret feeling is now an undeniable public truth. His soft touch is a check to confirm she is solid and real. His words, "You're mine," are transformed, no longer a claim of possession, but a vow of total protection. The sharp visual opposition of the brothers tells the whole story. One is the picture of contained strength, the other a shattered ruin. Even beaten, Elias makes one last mental play, asserting a power he chose not to use. Adrian counters not with a denial, but by implying a conscience in Elias that Elias himself disowns. Adrian then takes the weight of their history, admitting the harm he caused without making excuses. In a shocking departure from the endless retribution that rules their lives, Adrian grants clemency. He offers not a grave, but exile with the means to start again. This mercy is so unforeseen, it renders Elias silent. The reason given is not tactical, but a plea to the single tie that betrayal failed to sever: blood. Adrian explains his mercy is both a payment for his own sins and a promise to avoid more loss. As the orchestrators of the night's horror are removed, the garden becomes a place of quiet thought. Irina's closing assessment pinpoints the true cause of the breakdown: the volatile frailty of the human heart. Securing Lena's well-being was the one factor that was ever important. Pulling her close, Adrian sent Irina away into the moonlit dark, carving out a delicate haven just for them. Lena stared at him, trying to merge the image of the man who would die for her with the one who had imprisoned her. The vulnerable question of love is met with a raw, simple reply. For Adrian, admitting it is the last surrender of his emotional armor. He describes losing a war against her very being, a power that demolished his fortress of control, a soul that would not be erased as he had intended. She saw the two men within him, the proprietor who had purchased her like an asset, a permanent stain on his honor. But that truth warred with the memory of his raw courage, his feral protection, and the sight of him kneeling to an enemy, all for her. Her arms found his neck, a chain binding them both to this shared, beautiful madness. The kiss was not passion, but something closer to worship. as though she were a priceless, fragile relic. His words then shattered their old world, rendering the language of ownership obsolete. A new treaty was drafted, and Lena set the first term. She wanted no riches, no power, but the pieces of her stolen past to see her parents. It was an act of reclamation, a defiant rejection of the staged 15-minute visits that had been her cage. The second provision was her education, to be resumed under the shadow of armed guards. The third was the most dangerous, a demand for absolute clarity, an entry into the dark truths of his world. She insisted she had married the risk the moment his men came for her. Her logic was simple and final. She would rather face the monster she knew than be protected by soothing lies. After a flicker of calculation in his eyes, Adrian yielded. He promised full disclosure, but not tonight. Tonight was only for the silent assurance of carrying her inside. As they passed from the cold darkness into the warm interior, she voiced the essential question of their future. His answer was a framework for building a real marriage from the rubble of a business deal. The weeks that followed were a testament to that total, radical reconstruction. Elias was sent to Europe, a ghost with a new name and one final warning. Mara was likewise excised from the Moretti syndicate. Security was stripped down and rebuilt from nothing. Lena's parents were settled in a guest house, granting closeness without sacrificing freedom. Her father's confession came in a torrent of apologies, lancing a wound that had festered for months. Their broken family began the slow work of healing. Catherine's lessons evolved from survival to the intricate dance of power. Lena was learning to be a queen, not a pawn. She moved through his empire's social circles, forming alliances with the wives of powerful men and building her own channels of influence. School visits resumed. Irina a constant, watchful specter. The children adored her stories of clever heroines who engineered their own fates. And Adrian was changing. The core of the ruthless syndicate boss was still there, an unalterable piece of him. But that core had grown porous, allowing warmth and genuine smiles to filter through. 3 months after their pact in the garden, Lena watched Adrian in his element. He was an hour deep into a negotiation laced with elegant threats, yet his attention kept snapping back to her. He mouthed a silent apology, a promise of 5 more minutes. When the call ended, he rose, pulling her to her feet as the predator dissolved into the partner. He spoke of a gift, and wary of more gilded cages, she cautioned him. This was not jewelry. From a drawer, he took a file. Inside rested the founding document of her bondage, the original debt contract between Volkov and her father. Her breath caught in her throat. The agreement that had shattered her reality now lay in her hands. Adrian said he had bought it from Dmitri for double its price, a sum that was meaningless. His true intent was revealed as he took the papers, walked to the fireplace, and fed them to the flames. They watched the instrument of her captivity burn to ash. He told her she was free, the debt void, their marriage no longer a transaction. The answer to what it was now lay in a small box. Inside was no gemstone, but a plain gold band, a symbol of a promise, not a price, a choice to be made daily, born of want, not debt. Lena's gaze lifted from the unadorned ring to him. The man who once saw her as a cipher now looked at her as if she was his entire world. It was not a proposal, but a petition for her to stay, to build a life with him as an equal, not as property. His declaration of love was stark and complete. The choice to stay was a genuine question of her liberty. With the ledgers wiped clean, she could have walked back to a normal life. But normalcy had become its own kind of cage. Her whispered yes was an act of absolute sovereignty. The ring he placed on her finger felt entirely new. It was light, a vow, not a manacle. He was grateful that she had seen the man behind the monster, a vision that sparked his own desire to be better. Their kiss sealed a future built on profound risk. "For choosing me when you could have walked away," he murmured, holding her like his only anchor. Outside, the sunset painted the estate in a violent, beautiful gold. In the distance, the sound of her parents' laughter felt like a relic from a life almost lost. This was no fairy tale. It was a savage, intricate reality, still ringed with danger. But it was hers. One brutal truth at a time, they forged a new world from the wreckage. 6 months later, Lena's reflection was a stranger's. The terrified girl who signed her life away was gone, replaced by a survivor who had been tempered in the fires of chaos. A new woman stood there, a tactician who understood the brutal calculus of his world. At the door, Adrian waited, his suit and armor of extreme wealth. But the real power was in his gaze, a look that saw her as his singular, vital center. She took his arm, ready. Their shared goal tonight was a gala, an act of pure alchemy, to use the profits from a dark trade to create a legitimate one. It was her strategy, powered by his fearsome reputation. She would not be a consort in his shadow. She would be the queen at his side. Her mother's smile was a blessing, her father's nod a hard-won peace. Even the stoic Irina offered a faint flicker of approval. Catherine was there, her sharp gaze already dissecting the room's power dynamics. Adrian's quiet question about her nerves received a direct answer. "There is a good kind," he whispered. "The kind that reminds you that you have something to lose," she said, her grip on his arm tightening. "It means this is worth the war." His kiss on her temple was a silent concession. "Then I am terrified 24/7, he admitted as the first guests arrived. Vivian Castellano, Lin Chen, and a dozen other predators in tailored suits swept in. Lena stood her ground, with Adrian a shield at her side. This was her new battlefield, as beautiful as it was lethal. But she was prepared. She had been sold, hunted, and had stared into the void. She had managed the impossible. She learned to love the man who bought her, and by doing so, she had excavated the humanity he'd buried deep inside. Whatever threats came now, they would meet as one. Across the teeming ballroom, she met Adrian's eyes. He returned her slight smile, a silent pact formed in a room of enemies. In that look, Lena knew her gamble was sound. The contract that began her ordeal was gone, reduced to ash. What was left was raw and damaged and real. And that reality was priceless.